Alright, so we can get started by deleting the default cube by pressing X and deleting like so. So the first object that we're going to add in is a cylinder. So what we can do is press Shift A, go to Mesh, and add in a cylinder. So this will be for the basis of like the earpiece of the headphone. So what we can do is just go into front view by pressing the tilde key. This is the key above the tab key. As you can see here, it gives me all of my views to, I guess, navigate from. I feel like I don't mention it enough, so I'm pressing the tilde key, which is found above the tab key. You can also use the numpad to correspond to the correct views. But anyway, we can model our earpiece by tabbing into edit mode like so, and then pressing R and 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis. And then what we can do is just press Control R and add in an edge loop in the middle, and then just leave it like so. And then what I'll do is actually press Control B to bevel like so. Now we have two segments. So to increase the segments, all you need to do is scroll up on your mouse wheel. And then as you can see, we have an edge loop here and an edge loop here, whoops, here. And it is spaced evenly away from the edges. So then what I'll do is select this edge here, or just go into face select by pressing the 3 key on your keyboard, and then shift select this face here. I'll go back into front view, and then I will press S to scale down, and then I'll press S and X to just bring them outwards like so. So we just have a very basic cylinder shape. And what I can do actually is just scale everything down on the x-axis. So just press A, S, and then X to scale on the x-axis, like so. So the first part that we're going to start modeling, well, this is supposed to be the ear cushion. And one cool detail that we can add in fairly early on is making the seams of the earpiece. And this is actually a very easy thing to do. All you need to do is in edge select mode, alt click this edge loop here. And then what we're going to do is press Control B to bevel. And we can move our mouse to, I guess, change the size of that bevel. I'll make it about here. And then scroll up until I have 3 edges, as you can see here. Once you're happy, just press the left mouse button to confirm your selection. And then what I'll do is alt click this edge loop here in the middle. And then to make the seam, what I can do is just press S. Whoops, I'll press S to scale and bring it in like so. Now we have, I guess, the fabric kind of converging into the seam edge like so. So we can just continue creating the rest of the earpiece. And the first thing I'm going to do, or I should say the next thing I'm going to do, is just go into face select by selecting this face here. Well, first of all, make sure that face select mode is enabled. Right click on this face here, and then go back into front view. I will press G and X to bring forward like so, and I'll scale it down a bit. Actually, you know what, let me scale it up. I think it was fine. Like about here. Because the next thing I'm going to do is tab into edit mode and then press I to inset and scale it down quite significantly. This is going to be the actual place where you would put your ear in, and it's actually better to have it quite small. I think it looks quite weird if you have your hole looking this big. So just make sure to scale it down to about here. And then to accommodate for the actual ear shape, what you can do is just press S and Y to scale in on the y-axis like so. And then I can press E to extrude, and we have the, I guess, ear piece, I guess the place where you sit your ear in. But let me just quickly undo that. I want to make the section here a little bit bigger. And then I think that is perfect. So our earpiece is coming along quite nicely, or not so nicely, depending on how you look at it. It doesn't look too good just yet, but just trust the process and we will be having a very nice looking headphone in just a moment. So we can go back to our model and just do a similar thing for the seam, but except on this edge. Whoops, just make sure to go into edge select mode by pressing the 2 key on your keyboard, and then alt click this edge loop here. And this time I'll make the seam a little bit smaller. So I will press Ctrl and B to bevel like so, and have a smaller seam. Then I will press S to scale inwards, like so. There we go. And I think the ear cushion is a bit too like thick. So what I can do is just scale everything down, or I guess reduce the size of this segment here. And I'll do that by pressing Alt Z for X-ray mode, and then just box select all of these vertices here, and then press G and X to bring them back to around here, just so that we don't have such a wide looking cushion. I think that looks much better. So I'll just move everything back to the center. Alright, so that is the ear cushion done. And now we can just move on to making, I guess, the rest of the model. And we can do this by pressing E and then right clicking on this face here. And then pressing S to scale out like so. I'll scale out to about here, I would say, just past the cushion part. And then I can press E to extrude outwards and just bring it out a little bit. As you can see in the screencast keys, I was holding down the shift button. This is just so that I can slow down the movement of my selection. So I always hold the shift key. As you can see, when holding the shift key, it moves a lot less. However, when I'm not holding the shift key, it goes everywhere. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then let me just move this back. So I will press G and X. And I'll do the same thing, just extrude it outwards. But before I do that, let me just delete this face by pressing X and then delete faces. Hopefully I'm not going too quickly. I do try and take things slow, but if you need to, just pause the video, slow it down, or rewind if I'm going too quick for you. So I will alt-click this edge loop here, press E to extrude, right-click, and then press S to scale outwards like so. And then this is going to be like the main, I guess, plastic piece of your earphones, or your headphones, I should say. And yeah, so we'll just extrude it outwards like so. Press E to extrude, bring it out to about here. And then press E to extrude once more, and bring it out a bit less. And then press S to scale in like so. But don't scale it in too much. You don't want your headphones to look pointy. I just want a slight tapering of the headphone. Okay. So I think that looks quite good. And then what we can do is just fill in this open section here by pressing the F key, and that will fill in a face like so. So there we go. We have made the most basic features of our headphone, and then we will next move on to actually creating, I guess, the bridge of the headphones. So we can actually do that now. So we can build the bridge of our headphones by, first of all, rotating the headphone to about, let's say, 40 degrees. So press R and then 40. And I think that looks good. And rotating it in object mode is actually quite important, just so that we can utilize the local axis shortcuts. So to quickly show you what I mean, let's say if I wanted to move this, let's say I wanted to move this face here. If I were to move it on the Z axis, as you can see, it moves up and down. However, what if I wanted to move it in direction with the faces here? The best way to do that is through its local axis. And when you rotate it in object mode, you can actually preserve the direction that your object was initially in. So as you can see, if I press G and then X twice, so X and X, I'm pulling it out on the local Z axis. So that's just something to keep in mind whenever you're moving stuff in Blender. Sometimes it's more important, or it's better for you to move it in object mode as opposed to edit mode. But anyway, what we can do to build the bridge of the headphones is actually quite a fun technique using the spin tool. So to do that, first of all, let's just position our headphone piece to the center, or off center to about here, I would say, just so that we can have some space for the rest of the headphone. I keep mixing them up, apologies. So what I can do is just move it to about here. And again, I'm not too fond of this section here. So what I can do is just tab into X-ray mode by pressing Alt Z, press C for circle select, And then what I'll do is just circle select everything here, and then press G, X, X twice, and just bring it back a little bit. There we go. Just making it a bit less thick once again. So I'll just move my earphone to about here, so in this bottom right segment. And then what I'll do is go out of X-ray mode by pressing Alt-Z and select a few faces here. So we want our, I guess, the headband of our headphones to cover a few of these faces here. So before we do that, we want some separation in between, I guess, this section here and the rest of the headphones. So what we can do is press Ctrl R, add in an edge loop, then press the right mouse button to leave it in the center. Then I will press Ctrl B to bevel it, and then lower the segments until there's just 2, which is the minimum amount. I'll leave it about here, and then actually let me just scale it on the local x-axis a bit further down, just because we don't want a headband that's too thick. And then what I'll do is select a few of these faces here. So as you can see, this is the center line. So I'll select 3 on either side. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, making 6 in total. Then what I'll do is press E to extrude, and as you can see, it's extruding on its local Z-axis, I believe. And as you can see, we have extruded out a piece of our headphones. So what I'll do is just scale this so that it's flat on its local Z-axis. So I'll press S, Z twice, and then 0, and I'll leave it like so. Then what I'll do actually is extrude it upwards by pressing E and then Z twice. And as you can see, I've just brought it up to about here. And then similarly, I'll press S, Z, and 0 to scale it on the Z-axis to 0. That looks quite good. And we're almost ready to use our spin tool. However, one thing I like to do is just scale in this region here. So I'll go into face select and alt click this edge loop here. And then I'll press S and Y to scale in on the Y-axis like so. Just so that we have, again, a slight tapering effect. Just adding some nice design flair to our model. So I'll just scale it in on the Z-axis. Not the Z-axis, the Y-axis. And as you can see, this is how our headphone is looking, or I guess part of it is looking so far. So now we can finally use the spin tool modifier. And to do this, all you need to do is select the spin tool. And as you can see, our origin of spinning is going to be placed where our 3D cursor is. But first of all, let's change this to Y, because we want it to be rotating around the Y-axis, like so. But also we want to rotate it around the center. So we need to just move our 3D cursor so that it's perfectly in the center. We could waste a bunch of time trying to zoom in and get to the center like so, but the quickest way to center your 3D cursor is by pressing Shift-C. What I'll do is select these top faces here. So select this face here, and then Control select this face here, and then press X, delete faces, so that we just have a gap here. And then go into edge select mode by pressing the 2 key on your keyboard. Alt click this edge loop, and then go back into front view. And then what you can do is use the spin tool to spin, I guess, or extrude your vertices until they're about to this region here. So as you can see, we have quite a curved headset. So let me undo that. Sometimes you have to experiment and play around with, I guess, the position of your axes, or for the position of where your spinning parts will be. So I've just moved everything down, and once again I'll try. And again, I think we're getting closer. But again, I feel like the headband is a bit too long.